Good evening, everyone. How the devil are you? Excuse me while I just have a wee tipple. Hey, do you, mate? So let's do the customary thing of have a look in the chat and see who we've got in. I see we've got Dave Lewis first out the traps there, Dave. How are you, mate? Then we've got Johnny Random, Deco Dude, and Lee's in, and Colin Falcon. How are you, mate? Vincent Brennan, Chip Young, Fender Bender, all the usual suspects, it seems. Johnny Random, Dry July for you. Was it, John? Is it for you, Chip? DMA? No, it's this kind of weather. It's it's just too tempting to have a beer when you've been at the coalface all day, and especially doing what I do for a living, which is talking for a living, and your throat's parched and it's warm outside, and it's I do look forward to a beer. So. How are we all doing? How's it all going? Is this Zoom setup still working for you? Am I still coming over okay? Is it have we got sound and vision, everything? Hi John, any advice on developing muscle memory in playing guitar? Yes, it's called practice. Seriously, that's what practice is. It's just the practice of developing muscle memory. Basically, just don't try and bite off more than you can chew. Small little sections of whatever it is you're trying to learn, be it a solo, a chord change, a scale, a riff, anything like that. Break it down into sections that are small enough and short enough for you to be able to memorize easily, and go over it and over it and over it and over it and over it. That is the the trick that I've found, really, and it seems to work. Okay, so it's all coming through okay, is it? Bottleneck Bob, how are you, mate? Just got home from Northumberland, having a beer now. Yes, well, I would like to say that this is the first one of the week, but it isn't really. It's I've been I was a bit parched last night, so I went up to the corner shop at the top of the road and got myself some of the old I always call it Stroppy Barman, but Stara Pramen, something like that. But that's all gone now, and back on the Morrisons. Hello from Stuttgart, Germany, loud and clear, John. Well, thank you very much. John, are you in a confessional? It does look a bit like that, doesn't it? But no, this is just the new backdrop that I've got. As I explained last week, it was I started thinking, well, maybe I should have a little bit more of a professional-looking background than all of the kind of bed linen stacked up behind me and the wife's hair care products and stuff on the shelf there, and just the general kind of untidy detritus of this room that I work from. So I thought I'll use a virtual Zoom background. And then I tried that, and it said, your device does not support virtual backgrounds. So I thought, well, screw it then, I'll get a real one. And 30 quid and an Amazon delivery later, this is what I've ended up with. Oh, thank you, Jason. Yeah, the wife's knee, she's doing okay. She's got some physiotherapy starting next week, and she's just that little bit more mobile every day, and she's getting about a bit, a lot, kind of just that little bit better. Still hurts like Billy O, apparently, but she's got some ridiculous strong painkillers that help keep that under control, and then just the old trick of the bag of frozen peas on it, just to kind of just to numb it a little bit every now and again. Hello, chap, says China Guitar Mike. How are you, mate? Nice to see you here. It's Yes, nice to see other YouTubers dropping in. It does make me feel, like I'm doing something that, that must be kind of worth watching. God knows why, but as I say, it's just a fat bloke drinking beer and talking cobblers for an hour. But you seem to like it, so I'll keep on doing it. Anyway, let's move on to more educational matters, shall we say? The stuff that's going to be on the channel next week. Excuse me. On Sunday, 5 p.m. Sunday, which is the new slot for the weekend videos. It's going to be that solo over the that minor key malarkey thing from Wednesday. Where we're kind of going in and out of that natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor, basically a solo doing all of that. And it's easier than you might think, as you will find out if you watch the video on Sunday. Then on Monday, of course, it's a solo analysis that we're doing. We're going to be looking at a classic bit of early 80s rockabilly courtesy of Brian Setzer. I won't keep you in suspense. We're looking at the Rock This Town solo by the Stray Cats. Then Tuesday, I'm going to be talking about another one of my favourite bands. We're going to be looking at my top 5 Rainbow performances. And there's... Well, not to give you too much of a spoiler alert, but there's a couple of songs that you might think will be on there that aren't. Say no more. Then on Wednesday, it's Theory Wednesday again. And do you remember a few weeks ago, or maybe a couple of months actually, I did that theory thing on rhythm notation and understanding rhythms and stuff. This is very much a practical application of that. How you can use a little bit of rhythmic nous to come up with some great sounding licks. Basically, it's that old thing of you can take a rather mundane sounding lick, change the timing a little bit, and it brings it to life a little bit more. So that's Wednesday's video. Then on Thursday, I've got a guitar to show you. We're going to be looking at this lovely thing here. Yes, another Telecaster style guitar. What is it? It is the, I don't know if I can get it in shot, but I'll tell you. It's basically the vintage, hang on, V58JD, which is the, thank you, Mike, thank you. That's very, very nice of you to wish the missus a speedy recovery. It's the vintage Jerry Donahue signature model, which is everything a Telecaster should be, and just a little bit more. It's another one of these Telecasters that has a fancy bit of wiring going on. So, we're going to be looking at that. And then Friday, we're back on the beer. Are you doing well, are you, Bob? Good for you, mate. I'll be speaking to you on Sunday, no doubt, if I'm in any fit state. Well, I will be, because, as I've mentioned before, I'm allowed to be smug because I just don't get hangovers. Hey, yes. And on that note, excuse me for just 1 second. Hopefully I'm better prepared this week. If you remember, we had to cut the live stream off, maybe 5-10 minutes early last week because I'd run out of beer. I brought an extra one up with me this week. Hopefully that will be enough. So yes, I want to give a big shout out as well to a couple of people, Dave Lewis and Budget Guitar Show, I think it was, that basically broke the news, I suppose, that, or certainly it was Dave Lewis who broke it to me, that all of the kind of pricing and everything is back to normal now with Toman, because it was a little bit, a bit of a mess around, wasn't it? Because they weren't putting VAT on there. You weren't sure what price you were going to be paying if you were ordering a guitar from Toman, after Brexit and everything, but it's all back to normal now, which, evening, Dan, how are you? Not seen you in a while, mate. How's it going? But yeah, it always struck me as a bit odd that they're saying, oh, well, it's, because Britain left the EU, that, it's all kind of up in the air and a bit dicey about ordering a guitar from a company based in the EU, which I never really bought that because, the first few YouTubers I saw talking about Harley Benton guitars were in the States, and they didn't seem to have any problem, ordering from the EU. But there you go. Yeah, vintage are great guitars, David. I've had quite a few of them. Let me just talk about what vintage brand guitars have I had. One of the best ones I had actually was they discontinued this line, but a few years ago they had what was called the Vintage Advance guitars, which were like updated versions of classic designs. And I can't remember which model number it was, but it was basically like an updated version of a thin line semi-can, more like a 339 than a 335. So I had one of those, V100 Les Paul, V6 Strat, and the VS6 SG. So those are the I think the 4 or 5 that I've owned. Probably missed 1 or 2 out there, but I've played like a bunch of others that students have had over the years, and fantastic guitars, punching well above. I mean, it's a vintage, it's a budget brand guitar, but it's a Jerry Donahue signature model. I mean, you don't tend to get. I suppose you do. I mean, there's like Squire versions and Epiphone versions of signature model guitars, but those don't tend to be the ones that the artist in question goes out and plays. But that is, the guitar that Jerry Donahue plays. So there you go. Dave Lewis is saying, I bought the Orange Special Edition double vinyl Brian Setzer Orchestra album yesterday. Good for you, mate. Yeah, I am a big fan of Brian. As I said in that video on Tuesday, it was weird because, like, when I was like an adolescent, I don't know, maybe in my early to mid-teens, probably about 13, 14, let's say, I was into like kind of rock music. I was just starting to get into it, but my first love was rock and roll, and all of the kind of the real hardcore, kind of new wave of British heavy metal fans that were my mates at school. They all used to take the mickey out of me a little bit because, that's, you don't get the musicianship on that. Listen to these lads out of Iron Maiden, listen to the Saxon, listen to this. That's what proper guitar playing is. And then, okay, then have a listen to Stray Cat Strut and play me those licks. And, it was, Brian seemed to have that, or seems to have that kind of shredding virtuosity, but not in a style that perhaps you traditionally associate with, shredding virtuosity. That's a vintage V100 Iced Tea in my thumbnail. Amazing for the price. Sounds great with the Harley Benton Tube 15. Yeah, that was the same one I had, Jason. I had the V100 in the Iced Tea finish. It was a beautiful, stunning looking guitar. And I mean, my love-hate relationship with Les Pauls is well documented. I love the sound of them. I love the look of them. And when I first buy one, I love how it feels to play. And then that wears off after a while, and suddenly I'm reaching for a Telecaster all of a sudden. I would possibly stick my neck on the line and say the V100 is probably the nicest Les Paul style guitar I've owned. When I got rid of that, it wasn't because I was fed up with it. Excuse me. It was I had a bill to pay, and it was it was which guitar can I sell that I'm not going to miss as much as any of the others. So that's why that one went. Have you heard of an old brand called Roger? My dad's first guitar back in the 50s, and my bro, and I use it now on our stuff, and it sounds great. That is a new one on me, David. I got to tell you, that's. Oh, thank you, Colin, mate. You're a gentleman and a scholar. That will refill my glass. But no, Roger guitars, never ever heard of them. Hi, John. I like the new look. You look more upmarket, dark and mysterious. upmarket is never a word that has been traditionally associated with John Robson. I'm talking about myself in the first person there, aren't I? Maybe I should, that's kind of like a politician's kind of trick, isn't it? I must keep an eye on that. Enjoying your theory, John. Been playing for 20 odd years and thought I'd better start to learn some fundamentals. Well, thank you, Snake Eyes, mate. Yeah, I mean, again, as I've said before, you know me well enough now to have probably heard this this kind of anecdote before. But the theory for me was just, I was always curious about the how, about the why as well as the how. Really, you know, I would get a new bike for Christmas, and by Boxing Day it would be in bits because I wanted to know how the Sturmey Archer gears worked and what and how to make the brakes work better and all that sort of stuff. I was always interested in kind of getting into stuff and figuring it out and puzzling it through and understanding it. So I guess that's just a personality trait, and it's one of those things that yeah, I suppose you're either like that or you're not. You're either wired that way or not, and that's just the way I am. And if you are, of a similar persuasion, and you're getting something from the theory stuff that I do, well, that's mission accomplished as far as I'm concerned. Where are we? How do you feel about doing a review of my Epiphone Les Paul Custom, John? I'm always up for doing a review of a guitar, Bob, because, and this is, I could say that it's like, oh yes, well, I'm here as a public information service and, getting the word out and, impartial reviews and everything. I could, kind of come out with all that gold guff. But the bottom line is, if you look at the reviews that I do, or the videos that I do, anything where I'm talking about equipment, a review, or just like that, that Let's Go Fantasy Guitar Shopping video I did yesterday, the £100 budget thing. Anytime I do a video like that, it just gets loads of views, and that means I have a better month, and that means that I can treat the missus to a curry. So yeah. I'm always up for doing guitar reviews. On that note, a guitar review, there is a rather interesting one coming up. My signature guitar, I've obviously got serial number 001. I'm going to be getting my hands on serial number 002. The chap who owns that guitar is going to be bringing it up, and it'd be interesting to do a review on how the two guitars, compare to each other. So that one's going to be interesting. How about doing Clapton's second solo in Crossroads? One of the greatest solos of all time. It is on the list, mate. It's been a while since I've done a Clapton solo, and it's been a while since I've done anything Gary Moore related. I have to watch myself, you see, because I could so easily just kind of, these solo analyses, I could so easily just do a Clapton one, a Gary Moore one, a Mark Knopfler one, a Dave Gilmour one, then a Clapton one, then a Gary Moore one, then a Mark Knopfler one, then a Dave Gilmour one, and on an endless loop. So I try to, kind of break it up a little bit. But yeah, it's time I did another Clapton one, and that's probably a good choice, mate. Good shout. The guitar tech I used to go to used to be Chief Luthier for Trev Wilkinson and Fret King guitars. I believe he worked with Jerry Donahue to develop both his vintage then Fret King signature models. Nice one, yeah. My old guitar tech, I was saying, that sounds very grand, doesn't it? My old guitar tech, but he was the guy I used to go to. He didn't work exclusively for me, but the guy I used to go to exclusively for about 25 years is sadly no longer with us, and he was an absolute genius. Jim Cairns, if ever you see a Jim Cairns guitar, because he was a luthier as well, if ever you see a Jim Cairns guitar, you probably won't, because people tend not to let them go. But if ever you do see a Jim Cairns guitar, just buy it. He made exquisite guitars. He should have been, up there with someone like, he should be, I think, considered alongside people like, John Suhr, or, what's he called, Mr. Nags, that used to work at PRS. And he just used to work out of like a shed in his garden in Redcar, where he had all of his equipment and everything. It was a workshop. It was a big shed, workshop, let's call it. And he was involved in the resurrection. Do you remember when Burns guitars were kind of resurrected in, I think, the early to mid 90s? He was involved in that. He wound great pickups. Steve Hoggart will tell you all about him if ever he comes on Jim Cairns, because he knew him as well. And great guy, and sadly succumbed to cancer a few years ago. But I learned a lot from him as well, because he was always very generous about kind of telling you what he was doing and how he was doing it. Excuse me, I've just been blethering too long. I'm just catching up with the chat. Oh, Colin, you have another guitar coming on Monday. Bought from a guy that sells on Facebook. What's that? An AC Les Paul. You're welcome to review it. Oh, well, thank you, Colin. It's not a brand I've ever heard of, mate. Another is Hendrix All Along the Watchtower. The Wah Wah solo again brings tears to my eye. Yeah, that solo where he comes in with the wah is absolutely one of the high points of, well, Hendrix, really. That's. It annoys me a little bit, actually, that the media to this day, when they talk about Jimi Hendrix, they talk about this wild lunatic that smashed up and set fire to guitars, and that is kind of, if there's going to be talk of Jimi Hendrix on TV or anything like that, that's what you'll always see. And that's what I always saw when I was growing up and thinking about, learning about guitar. And everybody was going about this fantastic guitar player, Jimi Hendrix. And then I would see that, on, some TV clip show or something. And I didn't get it. Why didn't they just why do people constantly bring that up when it comes to Hendrix? He was a fantastic guitarist, lyrical, musical, innovative, and all you ever see is that clip of him setting light to the guitar. It kind of gets on my wick a little bit, that. Oh, cheers, Colin. Yeah, just send me a pic, and I'll be well up for that, mate. Thank you. Mike Smith Guitars in Southport builds the guitars for Status Quo these days. Great bloke and amazing guitars. Again, not a brand I've ever heard of, not a maker I've ever heard of. But, every time we talk about this on this live stream, about, kind of small independent luthiers, there's always loads of names that come up. And it astounds me that, that there are this many just little independent builders, all just, obviously, they're making a living out of it, or they wouldn't be doing it. I suppose some people can do it as a bit of a side project or as a hobby, but, the amount of equipment that you need to build guitars, especially if you're building them for, let's face it, a fairly big name band like the Quo, then I don't imagine that guy's doing it as a hobby. Do guitars sound better the older they get? How much truth is in this? Oh no, this is a thorny question, isn't it? Because you're kind of talking about the wood aging, and then you're getting into the whole tone wood debate. I don't know. There is, so much in inverted commas mojo associated with old guitars, that it's difficult to say. Glenn Fricker did, if you're talking about specifically the tone wood thing, I know this is going a little bit off topic, talking about the age of guitars, but it's kind of related to the tone wood thing. Glenn Fricker did a pretty scientific test, actually, where he had two identical guitars custom made for this test that were identical in every way, and the only difference was the timber they were made from. And he's issued a challenge to anybody who can pinpoint in the track that he recorded with him when it's going from one guitar to another guitar and back again. And so far, apparently, no one has managed to do that. That said, it's a typical Glenn Fricker piece of music, kind of big, shouty, chunky, grindy metal. So because I'm not really a metal aficionado, I'd be kind of difficult to hear the difference there. But then again, if you are a big kind of metal guy, maybe you can. I don't know, but nobody has done yet. So I don't know. Does the age of a guitar affect the tone? It's possible that it might, and there you go. It's interesting, actually, that, listening to an interview with Bernie Marsden, when he was touring in the States in the 70s, you could pick up, kind of 59 Les Pauls and, old Strats and stuff like that for peanuts. They were just second-hand guitars. They were just used guitars. The whole kind of vintage thing in the mid-70s hadn't really taken off. And, that's how come he's got such a ridiculous guitar collection. And I think a lot of what kind of makes us think of older guitars, especially vintage guitars, as being that little bit special is because the quality, certainly of Gibson and Fender in the 70s, dipped. So that's why people started going after the older ones, because they were just put together better. And that drove the price up, and then the whole mystique and collectible kind of thing kind of came on its coattails. They sometimes feel better played in, says Mike. Yeah, that's true. I mean, there's nothing quite as nice as that sort of rolled fingerboard edge, is there? That's something I love on a guitar. But it amazes me that you don't get that on new guitars, because it's a fairly easy thing to do. I've done it on guitars myself. It's just a case of a little bit of well, there's various ways you can do it. I won't go into details here, but it's a fairly easy thing to do, to roll the fingerboard edges. But that is, for me, the real kind of feel of a played-in guitar, where it just kind of sits in your hand, and there's no not sharp, but kind of hard edge between between the sort of relatively flat part of the neck of the fingerboard and the rounded part, the camber at the back. And so yeah, and also when you've kind of worn the finish down to a nice kind of satiny kind of feel. That Gordon Smith, Bob will tell you all about this. That came when I first got it. It had just a satin finish, and as just the natural oils from the skin and everything just kind of brought it up to a beautiful, not high gloss, but just more like a gloss kind of satin kind of feel. And yeah, great stuff. A played-in guitar does feel nice, and that's one of the arguments I can go with, possibly, to see the value of a relict guitar, because it's got perhaps more of that played-in feel. But it's just when it starts looking like it's been buried in a peat bog for 40 years that it starts to put me off. Anyway, excuse me, beer. Let's just have another look at the chat. Do you use a compressor pedal, says Andy Hawk? If so, which one? I don't at the moment, but I used to. I used to use it when I was playing in like a club band, working men's club band round here. Well, a few of them I played in. And quite often you needed a clean boost for doing like kind of clean solos and stuff. So I used to use one primarily for that, and it just used to tighten things up. Again, playing in country bands, it's no good stomping on the dirty channel of your amp to do a country solo. Because quite often it needs that sort of that clean boost sound, and so I used to use one for that. But nowadays, because I'm not really playing live anymore, if I just need the clean sound to be louder for a solo, I just push the fader up in Reaper, where are we? Anyone seen Jonathan Cordy on YouTube making me lust for a HX Stomp, but expensive? No, can't say I have, mate, but I shall keep an eye out. My dad's 73 Gibson Les Paul Custom weighs an absolute ton, no weight relief there. Another plug for Victor on Fret Friend on YouTube, who did an amazing job sorting out for us. Well, nice one, David. Yeah. A Les Paul Custom is the osteopath's friend, isn't it? It has to be said. Oh, hello, what's happened here? Did I buffer just then? I just got a weird kind of the old donut of death kind of circling there. But never mind, we seem to be back. The neck on the Gordon Smith is fabulous, says Bob. It feels good and plays well. Well, yeah, I'm glad you... I couldn't be happier, Bob, that guitar has gone to you, because it's like, I know it's gone to a good home. Do you know what I mean? Where are we? I've heard stories about even early Les Pauls having no resonance. Just goes to show that it's always worth playing before you buy. Yeah, true. Which kind of goes against the whole kind of convenience thing of, like, kind of, you want a new guitar, so you click on the buy it now button and it arrives. And that said, I've had a few guitars where it looks on paper to be a great guitar, but it never really kind of woos me. So, I've never felt that way about a guitar that I've actually been into a shop and tried and played and then, handed over some cash and walked out of the shop with. So, there is obviously benefits to just picking it up and playing it, Okay, no buffering. Oh, evening, Craig. I hadn't noticed you were in, mate. How are you? All the best Les Pauls I've played have been by Orville. In fact, I'm playing mine now. Yeah, that was an interesting thing, wasn't it, when Gibson brought out the Orville kind of thing? And it was. We tend to think of the affordable budget entry level Les Paul kind of Gibson-y kind of thing as being Epiphone, but Orville, I might be wrong, but I think the Orville kind of thing kind of predated that, didn't it? Well, thank you, Bob. Glad you're enjoying it. Where are we? I'd be afraid to have lessons with John. He'd never stop laughing or sighing. No, honestly, you no. I never. And you could say, well, he would say that anyway, but I never kind of get that way. The only time I kind of get a bit sort of the kind of with students is when I can tell that they just aren't putting the work in. And at the risk of sounding like a grumpy old man, but I will, it's usually kids. It's usually kids that haven't got a properly developed work ethic yet, and they want to be able to play, whatever it is they want to be able to play on day one. And it's just, and you think, well, no, you can't quite do it that way. You've got to kind of learn the basics and learn the ropes. And, it's if somebody says, I haven't had a chance to practice this week, well, fair enough. Life gets in the way. And if you're having problems with something, I'll go over it with you, and I'll kind of explain it and try and kind of coach it through it and find a different angle maybe if it's not sinking in. What really kind of just does get me a little bit frustrated is when people say, "Oh yeah, I've been working really hard been kind of it's great," and then trying to tell me that they've been kind of working on something, and then they can't remember the chord shapes, or they can't remember the fret numbers, or they can't and you think, yeah, you're obviously not committed to this, so why are you spending money on lessons? That is the one that I get a bit frustrated with. Yeah, she's doing good. Yeah, Orville had the right headstock too. You're right there, Mike. Yes, thanks, Craig. She's as I said, as I was saying earlier, she's getting up and about a bit more, and she's got some physio booked in for next week. So hopefully, things are going to be getting back to normal. She's back at work as well soon, although she's just working from home. It's kind of logging on from home. So, and she's looking forward to that because it's just she's just watched pretty much everything that on Netflix at the moment. So she's just bored out of her skull. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Mike. The thing that always put me off Epiphone Les Pauls, especially Les Pauls by Epiphone, was just the headstock shape. Since they've changed it to that sort of more kind of slightly more Gibson-esque headstock shape, I'm okay with it. But just that sort of that Epiphone headstock shape with the corners clipped off, it just looked wrong on a Les Paul to me. I didn't mind it on a on like an Epiphone Dot or something like that. That looks in keeping with that style of guitar. But on a Les Paul, it just looked somehow glaringly wrong. So, and then I was talking about vintage guitars earlier. The one beef I have with vintage as a brand is their Les Paul headstock shape. It's just that kind of odd collection of lumps and lips and bumps across the top that just never kind of quite works, Tokai did a pretty good, kind of approximation, but not quite infringing copyright, Gibson-ish headstock shape. But, it's that old school Epiphone Les Paul headstock shape for me just, I wouldn't say it was a deal breaker, but it wasn't really, it just didn't look right on the guitar. Oh, thank you, Steve. You're a gentleman and a scholar. As he's saying, I can vouch for John's gracious teaching approach. Yeah, it's, I've learned how to be a teacher over the last, 30 years. I cringe to think about some of the lessons I did back in 1991 when I started, because I was crap. I was a crap teacher back then. But, you learn. And you learn quick when it's something that you're relying on to pay the bills. So thank you, Steve. Thank you. Hi, John. Ever played or even heard someone playing an original clon pedal? What is the hype all about? I've never played through one, and I've possibly heard thousands of recordings of them, or possibly not. It's just that, it's an overdrive pedal, and it's probably got about 10 quid's worth of components in it, but it's that's not what you're paying for. You're paying for the the idea, the sound that it produces, and the circuit design by whoever it was, I can't remember now, who designed it. Red Shull actually put this brilliantly well. He said, imagine if there were only like 2,000 Marshall amplifiers in the world. Imagine how much a Marshall amplifier would cost, and imagine You know, the lengths people would go to get that sound if they weren't like a mass-produced product, you know, because, I mean, iconic amplifier sound on, you know, countless classic rock, so, you know, kind of albums and tunes and stuff. Imagine if there was like a real scarcity of those amplifiers. You know, they would fetch, you know, kind of ridiculous money, which is exactly what's going on with the Klon. You know, it's a nice. I mean, I've heard YouTube. I think I saw Tyler Larson demoing one on Music Is Win. You know, and yeah, he got a great sound out of it. Is it a sound that's worth $5,000? Well, not to me, it isn't. But you know, that's called the free market. If it's worth that money to somebody, then it's worth that money. You know. Where are we? I have found if a Les Paul does not sound good unplugged, it will not be good plugged in. Yeah, you see, you're getting into the old tone wood debate there, aren't you, George? You know, it's does the acoustic sound of a guitar affect the plugged-in sound of the guitar? Well, there's verbal fisticuffs and keyboard warriors with the caps lock key on both sides of that debate, and you know, I must admit, I do think that it's not necessarily the sound of the guitar unplugged. What I think may be a big part of this is if the guitar feels resonant and you're playing it and you can feel the notes vibrating through the body of the guitar and through the neck of the guitar, that makes the whole thing feel more alive. And, you know, that is going to affect your perception of how that guitar sounds. If it feels like it's alive with every note that you play, then that is going to make you play differently than if it feels sterile and, you know, just dead. There was a guitar I reviewed ages ago. I don't know if you remember it. It's way back in the sort of early days when I started really doing this channel properly. And I can't even remember the brand, but it was a guitar made from plastic. Basically, it was like some carbon fiber plastic kind of composite kind of thing, and it sounded okay, but it felt like there was just no kind of resonance or vibration there in the guitar, and that made me play a lot more pedestrian, I would say. So, you know, I think that's maybe one of the factors that goes into the whole kind of tone wood debate, how the guitar feels to play. It's like does string gauge affect the sound of a guitar? Well, possibly not if you measure it scientifically, but it affects the feel of the guitar. It affects the player's experience, and that affects how you play, and that does affect the sound. John, you could easily make a clone with your electrical knowledge and a circuit diagram. I could, but then again, you know, if I did, would it be worth what a clone is worth? You know, this is one of the things that, you know, you could make a table for out of like, I don't know, 20 quid's worth of wood. But is it worth the same as a table that was made by Chippendale in, you know, whenever Chippendale was making tables? You know what I mean? It's that there are other things to factor in other than just the raw kind of materials and the functionality of it. And to be honest, you know, I'm perfectly happy with the guitar tone I get. I have to say that some headstock shapes will also turn me off to some guitar copies. Yeah, it's bizarre, isn't it? You know, it's supposed to be all about the playing experience and the tone of the guitar, and you know, and just the quality of it. But us guitarists, we can be a bit shallow at times, and it's if we don't like the headstock shape, then that will put us off. Mind, I have to say that what's that upmarket Strat copy called MacMull? I mean, they could have made a bit more of an effort, frankly, couldn't they? Do you know what I mean? It looks just like one of those. Excuse me, more beer. One of those kind of paddle headstocks that you get on a guitar kit, where it's like you left to kind of come up with your own headstock design. But yeah, I'm with you on that. You know, the shape of the headstock it's called the head, isn't it? It's the face of the guitar. It's what you see. You kind of, you know, at the top of the instrument when you look at it face on, and if it's ugly, then the guitar can look a bit ugly. There's a dearth of blind tests for gear on YouTube. People don't like to be shown their ears can be made a fool of. Oh, yeah. I mean, going back to Glenn again, Glenn Frick of Spectre Media. I was watching him the other day. He did a brilliant test on whether or not swapping out the tubes in an amp improves tone. And like he meticulously did it so the only variable was the tubes, and they made no difference, or made very little difference, perhaps a little bit of difference in terms of the amplitude of the signal, but that was it. And, you know, he's constantly getting grief for that because he's challenged people's preconceptions. Headless guitars put me off. Yeah. See, I would have thought you'd have been into that, Craig, because, you know, you're quite the metal kind of thing, aren't you? And that's kind of big in that genre. But you see, I remember the headless guitars from first time around in the 80s, Steinbergers, that sort of black plastic cricket bat of a guitar. Never ever fancied one of those. Never, and you know, it's just not my cup of tea. But you know, what goes around comes around. You know, it's headless guitars sort of lost their popularity in the 90s, and suddenly they're trendy again. Isn't something worth how much someone's prepared to pay for it? Sometimes posing, etc., comes into it. Yeah, indeed, Dave. Yeah, I'm with you that. My bass is 50% block ply and 50% car body fillet, and it's great. Good for you, mate. Yeah, you don't tend to hear bass players talking about tone wood, do you? They don't tend to give as much of a monkeys about that kind of thing as us 6-string lads. Mind you, one of the nicest guitars I ever had, really, was a Squier Strat. Excuse me, windy pops. A Squier Strat from the late 80s, and the Squier were making their Strats out of plywood back then. And I put a set of EMG pickups in it, and it was a great guitar. Used it on loads of gigs, and admittedly not as my main guitar, but you know, used it as a backup guitar for when me Floyd Rose went out of tune, which was quite often, but that's another story. But yeah, it was a great sounding guitar. You know, I mean, that might be down to the EMG pickups, though, because I think, I can quote Pat Travers when he said you could put EMGs on a shovel and it'd sound great. Has anyone seen the Glass guitar and the great guitar build-off? I haven't. I haven't been keeping up with that this year, I have to say, because I'm just too busy to get into it. But I've seen there's a few entries coming up. I think he started a bit of a phenomenon there, hasn't he, Ben, from Crimson Guitars? I don't know. Tempted to say he's created a monster, but I don't quite mean it like that, you know. But I think it became bigger than he ever imagined it would be. Shoo, Surely a mahogany body with a maple cap is technically plywood too. Well, technically it is, yeah. I remember on a YouTube comments thread, I got into a bit of a, because I used to do it in those days. Years ago, I got into a bit of a debate with somebody. Let's say it was what they call in political terms a full and frank exchange of views, with somebody who was saying that vintage guitars are, kind of crap because look at me, I've bought this vintage semi-acoustic, and I've looked inside, and somehow or other he kind of figured out that the top was that the top and the body and everything was made from plywood. I'm thinking, well, yeah, but you do know the Gibson ones were made from laminated wood as well, don't you? And it's just like, so yeah, mahogany and maple, yeah, that's kind of laminate. That's wood layers of wood stuck together. That's ply. You've held a glass guitar, have you, Mike? Bloody hell! And how did it feel? Best tone wood for ukulele, flammable. Yeah. What's the difference between an onion and a ukulele? Nobody cries when you chop up the ukulele. Anyway. Anyone seen the Doctor Who guitar? I saw that again. It's I've seen the video kind of in me suggestions, but I've not actually clicked on it and had a chance to watch it yet. Excuse me, I'm just reading the chat here. Is Mary Berry on the great guitar build off? No, I think it's Prue Leith these days, isn't it? That's anyway, obscure kind of UK TV joke. There's a video on YouTube where a guy takes his neck hardware and electronics out of his TC and installs them on a fence post and claims there's no difference in sound sustain, etc. Pretty funny. Yeah, I've seen a few videos like that, and there may be something in that. It's, again, the whole kind of tone wood debate. I don't think that it will ever be settled, really, because even if it is scientifically proven that the timber that a guitar is made from does affect the tone, or the timber that a guitar is made from doesn't affect the tone, there will always be naysayers on either side of the argument, and the debate will rage on. It's just one of those things. It's just human nature. We like to pick a side and stick to that side and stay loyal to that, despite what evidence might come up to naysay us. Okay, so it wasn't finished. Okay, not playable. So I can't remember the name of it, but there was a brand of guitars that were around in the 80s. And I'm tempted to say it was Glitter guitars, but it wasn't Glitter, but it was some name like that. And it was really weird. It just looks like it's a fretboard with no neck. I'm not really describing it very well, but just go on. Let me see if I can. I don't know how to share screens on here, but it's the weird. I'm sure if you Google glitter guitars, you'll see what I'm talking about. This weird guitar design where the neck is actually kind of either not there or invisible in some way. Yeah, the guy on YouTube with a tattooed head, that's Ben Crow from Crimson Guitars. Oh no, I've just looked up the glass guitar. I haven't held that. I held the Mirror Shard guitar by Devil and Sons. Okay, Mike. Well, fair enough. As I say, I'm not up to speed with this year's great guitar build-off. I do know though that last time I spoke to him, Dan, who made my lovely signature guitar, the John Robson signature model, link in the description. he was talking about taking part this year, so that'd be one to keep an eye on. What do you call a dumpster full of ukuleles? A good start. Oh, we're on to the musician jokes now, aren't we? Yes. Sayings you'll never hear. That's the ukulele player's Porsche. Or she's screwing the ukulele player, Hi, John. What is your favourite air guitar? Oh, dear me. That's going back a bit. You see, I started playing guitar kind of as a young wee whippersnapper when I was quite young, so I never quite got the air guitar kind of thing. I suppose I did the whole kind of tennis racket thing, before I got my first guitar, as you do. But never really done the air guitar thing. Be careful Googling anything with glitter. Yes. Better use DuckDuckGo for that one. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Mike. Dan's guitars are amazing, and at the risk of sounding like I'm just doing a sales pitch here, I'm not. The thing that amazes me about Dan's guitars, because I believe, Mike, you played the prototype. That was the first guitar he built. I've played it as well, and that sort of led to my signature guitar. That guitar, that essentially the thing that looks like my Blondie that's hanging on the wall there. That was the first guitar he built. I mean, who else could come straight out of the traps and build a guitar like that as their first guitar? I mean, most people graduate from like a parts caster and, kind of modifying guitars and repairing guitars to just like eventually, dipping their toe in the water and building their first guitar from lumps of wood. But Dan just, no, okay, I'm going to build a guitar. Where's the timber? And he built it, and it's amazing. John, I tried to click on the Scott guitars and it went to another guitar website. Yeah, that's the thing, Brad. Dan's website was... Dan, I think it's fair to say, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, is an absolute artist when he comes to building guitars. But putting a website together, that's maybe not his forte. I think that's fair to say. So he took the website down. So if you look at the more recent videos where I'm linking to Dan, then it's just his Instagram link. So if you click on that, and he says that's where he gets most of the the kind of interest from anyway. So he's that's where he's kind of concentrating all of his efforts now. I did a similar thing myself years ago. Back in the days when MySpace was the go-to social media platform, I didn't have a website for about 2 years. I just kind of had me MySpace page as my online presence, and it seemed to work. So I think that's what Dan's doing. Yeah, I got a 22 fret neck on mine, Mike. Yeah, I have a bit of an irrational kind of dislike of 21 fret necks. I just like that extra, to be able to get up to that extra high D. Anyway, chaps, I'm getting hungry, and there's a kebab on its way. So I'm going to love you and leave you and say once again, thank you so much for turning up to watch a fat, bald northern lad talk cobblers for an hour and get slowly kind of merry at the same time. It's been an absolute blast, and don't forget the video on Sunday, 5 p.m, and you're going to find out how to play all over that kind of melodic minor kind of stuff and harmonic minor. Good one, that one, even though I say so myself, it came out rather well. So don't forget to watch that, and I'll see you all on the next one. But for now, time, gentlemen, please. Thanks for turning up. I'll see you next time.